This is Dr. Robert Leviton, physician informatician, and in this section we will talk about the clinical application of worksheets or spreadsheets. Data analytics is among the primary reasons for adopting electronic health records to assist our collection, extraction, display, and analysis of data, creating the structural foundation for providing quality care. There are myriads of potential applications for data analysis. To learn about the clinical application of spreadsheets, we will focus on the quality improvement activity to identify and treat patients with a hemoglobin A1C greater than 9%. This population of individuals are known to have a high morbidity, mortality, and contribute to significant costs. We'll begin by taking our raw data downloaded from DataWorld, then successively building worksheets. We'll begin to understand our patient population and the outcomes of our treatment and management programs. In this section, we're going to talk about creating spreadsheets, whether it's adding a single spreadsheet or many worksheets, cutting, copying, and pasting into worksheets, including inserting and deleting columns and rows, using icons, mouse actions, and then adding labels to the column headers and adjusting those, as well as adjusting the column width and the row height. And then we'll conclude by talking how we're going to be able to sequentially number rows automatically. In our country, the Electronic Quality Improvement, or ECQI Resource Center, is an important resource for you to learn about the eligible criteria and quality management opportunities for physicians, clinicians, professionals, hospitals, critical access hospitals, and provides many other educational resources. The link to ECQI Resource Center is provided both in our textbook and electronic version. When you access a particular quality measure, in this case CMS 122V6, that is, managing patients who have a hemoglobin A1C greater than 9% or those who are poorly controlled, you'll see all of the criteria that have been identified. The measure's steward is the National Committee for Quality Assurance, while this particular measure is endorsed by the National Quality Forum, who gives it their own stamp of 0059. The description of this measure is those patients between 18 and 75 years of age who have a hemoglobin A1C greater than 9%, and the rationale is very significant. More than 75,000 patients a year die from diabetes who are poorly controlled. This contributes to $176 billion in direct medical costs and $69 billion in reduced productivity, totaling $245 billion a year to our nation's healthcare system. The American Diabetes Association, or ADA, have identified 4 clinical recommendations. That is, those patients will be considered as well controlled if the hemoglobin A1C is less than 7%. They will have had a comorbidity, and we'll talk about that momentarily, with a hemoglobin A1C of greater than 7.01 or less than 8%. They will be identified as being uncontrolled if their hemoglobin A1C is greater than 8.01 or less than 8.99%. And for the purpose of this study, those who are poorly controlled will have a hemoglobin A1C greater than 9%. Now, the ADA, in its Standards of Medical Care for 2019 in Chapter 6, identified patients as being well controlled as having a hemoglobin A1C of less than 7%. Some physicians and patients may look to have a more stringent control of less than 6.5%. For the purpose of our work here together, we'll consider well controlled as being less than 7%. Individuals who have severe hypoglycemia, limited life expectancy, advanced micro or macrovascular complications, or extensive comorbid conditions such as obesity or hypertension, or who have had long-standing diabetes may have less stringent control, and we'll consider that to be in the less than 8%. And again, for the purpose of this project, we're going to look at patients greater than 9% as being poorly controlled. So we'll begin by looking at our diabetes registry that we downloaded from DataWorld. And the first thing we're going to do is add a new sheet. So using the new sheet icon, we're going to come over here and we're going to label that sheet Diabetes Follow-Up. And because we like to identify those sheets with colors for future reference, we're going to come over here, right-click on the tab, add a tab color, and label that tab green. And you can see that that tab has been now labeled in that manner. There are times when you may want to be able to add multiple worksheets to your project. So if you come to File and then go to Options, under the General tab, you will see here include this many worksheets, and you can set that number to whatever number. Here it's set to 3. So that is, next time you open a workbook, it will automatically include 3 worksheets for you, and this can be adjusted anytime at all. Click OK and we're done. Now, the next task for us is to identify those columns of information that's important for us to bring into this diabetes follow-up sheet. So we're going to hold the control key, select ID, glucose, hemoglobin A1C, location, age, gender, height, weight, and weight 2, and then we're going to go right click and copy. And notice you get this error message that it will not accept multiple sheets. What you want to do at times is be aware that this error will come up because Excel doesn't always like copying multiple non-contiguous columns. So we'll try column A, C, F, G, H, I, J, K, and L, and then we'll go Control C, and you can see that we've got those columns highlighted for copying. We'll go to our diabetes follow-up tab, and we'll come over here, right click, and now we're going to paste. And now we've pasted those cells in. So you can see we have taken the non-contiguous columns from the diabetes registry and pasted them into our diabetes follow-up. We're just going to come over here, hit the escape key that releases that, and now we're going to go to diabetes follow-up. Now the next part of this lesson is to understand that we want to be able to insert rows and columns. So if we highlight column A and then holding the control key, highlight column D or the location column, going to the home tab in the cells group, we're going to insert and insert sheet columns. And you can see now we've inserted 2 columns to the left of the identified columns. Let's label column A patient count, and let's column E, we'll call that patient follow-up. You can see how patient count over here is not fully identified because the column width is too narrow. If we place the cursor between column A and B and double click, you can see now we've adjusted the width of that. Let's come over here and change ID to MRN number. Let's change this to read glucose. We'll change this to read hemoglobin A1C. Let's change this to location with a capital L. We'll change this to a capital A and a capital G. Now, if we highlight those column labels and then go to the bold icon, we've now bolded those column headers. If we take those same column headers, we can center them, and now we see we've centered them. And there are multiple ways of doing it. Remember, if you recall, if you right click, we got the upper content menu and the lower content menu. That'll allow us to right here center those columns. But you still note that patient follow-up has not been adjusted for the column width. Again, we can use the column width icon, but another method of doing that is by hiding those cells and coming over to the cells group of the home tab. Under format, you can adjust the auto height and the column width. So we're going to auto fit column width, and you can see now we have adjusted the columns for all of that. Now, note how we have, starting with column 1, column 2, row 1, row 2, if we come all the way down, you can see we have 391 rows of information, but only 390 patients. So how do we get a patient count? So we can go in and do sequential numbering. By sequentially numbering, we start with 2 numbers, 1 and then 2 and then 3. And notice this little cube here. We grab that. That's called the fill handle, and we'll drag that all the way to the end of our sheet. And you can see now it automatically all fills in. It's important to note that if you're going to manually add another row, right click and then go insert. Notice how we go from 384 to 385. Well, when we do that, we lose the ability to have that auto numbering. And so the important thing to remember is when you're adding cells that have been sequentially numbered, you're going to take the 2 cells above the row that was added and grab that and bring it down. See, we went 383 to 4586. So the important takeaway from this is when you are using sequentially numbered cells, it's not going to be automatically updated. You're going to have to manually select 2 cells and then using the grab handle and the autofill, drag that down below. Let's take this out of here for the moment and remove this row, and then grab these two and we're good. So we've managed to cover all of that data in a very brief period of time. This concludes this lesson, and we will see you for our next lesson on clinical applications in Excel.